GM's next chapter is about to begin. The widely anticipated IPO prices tonight and begins trading tomorrow. Joining us right now to talk about the automaker's future and what it means for the state of Michigan, Congressman Pete Hoekstra and Bart Stupak, both who represent Michigan. And gentlemen, welcome to both of you.
Hey, thank you. Good morning.
Congressman Stupak, why don't we start out with you talking about where you think Detroit stands right now, what you think about this GM IPO.
Well, I think it's good news. They anticipate a larger IPO than they thought. The value of the stock is going up, which only is good news for many of the retirees that live in my district, but also more importantly for the steel mills. I have the iron ore mines. We mine the iron ore that is used to produce the steel. My miners are going back to work. They're talking about expansion, a nugget plant to create and make more steel means more cars. It's all good news, I think, for General Motors and for actually the taxpayers of this country.
Is that good news in a relative sense, or good news meaning things feel pretty good again?
Well, we're getting there. I mean, you know, you wish it was even greater, but GM and Chrysler are doing better than what people anticipated. They paid back some of their loans. This IPO now gives us investors a chance to invest in the new GM and the new Chrysler, in this case the new General Motors, and the shares will actually be going for more money than they thought, which is good news. We'll have them produce capital to make more investments into the future of General Motors, and we'll see it back as one of the strongest companies again in the world.
Congressman Hoekstra, what do you think about the fate of your district right now, the fate of the state of Michigan, and how things look from your perspective?
Well, clearly with the IPO coming out tomorrow, it's a good move. It's good for GM. It's going to be good for Michigan. You know, we still have 13.6% unemployment in Michigan. We are still hurting. So while we're moving forward, we also have to reflect back and hope that the pain that we went through 15, 18 months ago doesn't happen again to one of the largest companies in America, in the world. You know, management in the private sector has a responsibility to its employees, to its customers, to its dealers. And what we saw is that GM management failed miserably. I'm glad they're back on the road to recovery on a relative basis. That means it's good for Michigan. It's good for constituents in my district. We're moving in the right direction, but we went through a very, very painful process.
Congressman Hoekstra, there are some who are guessing that GM and Ford and some of the automakers are going to be relying on your party, the Republicans, to try and get some relief from some of the fuel economy standards that are going to be put on them. What do you think about some of those ideas? Should they be held to these fuel economy standards? Is there something you'd like to see pushed off while the economy is still under some pressure?
Well, I think one of the reasons, I mean, there's multiple reasons why GM, Ford, and Chrysler, the domestic manufacturers, had such difficulty over the last couple of decades in maintaining market share. Part of it was the management of those companies. The second thing is some of the ill-advised government programs that were put in place. How fuel economy standards were written put companies, our domestic companies, at a disadvantage. They had full product lines. The imports had partial product lines. They only offered smaller cars. Our companies offered trucks and all of these types. We need to make sure that the policies that we put in place at the federal government level do not disadvantage American companies, allow them to compete on a level playing field. And as Ford has demonstrated, you know, they can do it. It's tough, but, you know, if we give them a level playing field, I think the future can be much brighter.
Although, Congressman Stupak, the administration at this point is considering the possibility of adding those fuel economy standards, raising them to about 62 miles to the gallon, which would be nearly double what it is today. That would happen by 2025. And some people around the country say, hey, this is what we should get for using taxpayer dollars for bailing out GM. What do you think? Well,
you are getting some of those mileage, especially with the new General Motors Volt. I mean, the electric vehicle, give the time for the technology to catch up there. But you can't suddenly go from 20-some miles per gallon to 60 miles or 55 miles per gallon for the whole fleet. As Pete said, as Congressman Hoekstra said, we have a whole fleet out there in America. We make a whole fleet of vehicles, everything from heavy-duty trucks to the small electric car, where other countries just make partial of our line, and then they can say, well, we get better gas mileage per our fleet. Well, when you only do part of a job, you certainly can, you know, fudge those figures to make it look like you're really doing something product when you're really not, when you take it, spread it out over all the cars you manufacture. You know, it's interesting, one of the reasons why that Korea trade agreement didn't go through that the president was pushing for was because of the small truck industry. You know, a lot of us were concerned. You go over there and you negotiate an agreement that you really hurt General Motors and Ford and Chrysler in the small truck area. So there's a lot going on here, and I just think to suddenly double and triple these standards would be wrong at this time.
So you were in favor of that Korean trade agreement getting scrapped?
Yeah, I wasn't in favor of it. I thought it would really hurt our domestic auto industry.
Congressman Hoekstra, how about you? There are a lot of people who say the only way you're going to get more jobs here in the United States is by looking abroad and hoping we can continue some trade.
No, absolutely. I'm in favor of, fair trade. I think the South Korean trade agreement was not fair trade. It disadvantaged U.S. manufacturers. We don't have access to the South Korean market for some of our agricultural products, our automotive industry, and other manufacturing products. It is obvious when you drive the streets of America. We have provided liberal access to South Korea, the South Korean automotive market, to come into the United States. All we're asking for is give us the same access under the same rules going into South Korea, going into Asia, going into Japan, that those countries and their companies have coming into the United States. Otherwise, we only can get new jobs, expanded exports, if we have good access.
Gentlemen, thank you both very much for your time. We appreciate it.
Great, thank you.